Under the harsh midday sun of southern Lebanon, the quiet of the village of Al-Baysariyeh has been shattered. The air is thick with dust and the acrid smell of burnt metal. Moments ago, an Israeli airstrike struck a civilian vehicle on a narrow street lined with modest homes and olive trees. Now dozens of villagers rush toward the smouldering wreckage, their voices rising above the crackle of fire and the echo of distant drones still circling overhead. A man shouts orders, urging others to keep back, but the crowd presses forward. Mothers pull their children away from the debris while young men lift twisted fragments of the vehicle, hoping to find survivors or at least the remains of those inside. Smoke curls into the sky, mixing with the cries of disbelief. One man, his hands blackened by soot, points at the crater in the asphalt, his voice trembling as he repeats, "This is where it hit." They didn't even have time to get out for residents here. This is not an isolated event. The people of Al-Baysariyeh, a village just a few kilometers from the Israeli border, have lived for months under the constant threat of airstrikes as clashes between Hezbollah and the Israeli military have intensified since the Gaza war reignited regional tensions. Every explosion, every plume of smoke feels like a warning of something larger to come. As the camera pans across the scene, we see what remains of the vehicle, its roof torn away, the engine block hurled meters from the chassis. A piece of scorched metal lies across the road, engraved faintly with what might have been a license plate. Nearby, a man kneels beside a pool of darkened earth, whispering a prayer under his breath. The sound of a distant ambulance wails through the village, echoing between the hills. Moments later, the Lebanese civil defense team arrives, weaving through the gathering crowd. They begin to cordon off the area, their uniforms marked with soot and dust. A rescuer lifts a fragment of glass and shakes his head. There's no sign of life. Villagers murmur that 2 people were in the vehicle, one of them possibly a local mechanic known for repairing farm trucks. There is confusion, fear, and disbelief. A young man, his face streaked with tears and sweat, shouts into a phone, "Tell them it was a drone. Tell them it targeted a civilian car." His words spread quickly through the crowd. Within minutes, the story will make its way across Lebanon's media networks, framed as yet another example of what locals call Israel's creeping war, a campaign of targeted strikes deep inside Lebanese territory. In Beirut, the Lebanese government has repeatedly condemned such attacks as violations of sovereignty. Officials say these airstrikes not only risk escalating into full-scale conflict, but also destabilize communities already on edge. Hezbollah, whose strongholds stretch across southern Lebanon, vows retaliation after every strike, though responses vary, from limited rocket fire to precision-guided attacks on Israeli positions. As the camera captures a wide shot of the scene, villagers stand in stunned silence. Only the wind and the faint hum of electricity from damaged wires fill the air. A woman clutches her scarf tightly, her eyes fixed on the charred vehicle. "They said it was one car," she mutters, "but it could have been any of us." In recent weeks, Israeli officials have stated that their operations in southern Lebanon are aimed at preventing Hezbollah attacks along the northern border. According to Israeli military briefings, many of the strikes target what they describe as imminent threats: vehicles suspected of carrying rockets, surveillance equipment, or armed operatives. But human rights groups and local authorities argue that such actions blur the line between military targets and civilian life. On the main road leading out of Al-Baysariyeh, a large yellow and green sign bearing the logo of Hezbollah stands defiantly. The words, "We resist until victory," stretch across it in bold Arabic script. For Israel, this is the symbol of what they view as a persistent, well-armed threat. For many Lebanese, it is a sign of resistance, however costly. The video's final frames linger on that image: a quiet highway, a Hezbollah sign, and the smoke still drifting from the village below. The contrast is stark: calm above, devastation below. The voiceover continues, offering perspective. The strike in Al-Baysariyeh follows a series of escalating incidents across the southern front. Just days earlier, Israeli jets bombed suspected Hezbollah observation posts near Nabatiyeh. In response, Hezbollah launched short-range missiles into Israel's Galilee region. Each exchange pushes the fragile balance closer to collapse. Regional analysts warn that what began as a limited exchange of fire could spiral into a wider confrontation, reminiscent of the 2006 Lebanon War. Back then, more than 1,000 Lebanese were killed and entire towns were flattened. Now, nearly 2 decades later, the fear of history repeating itself hangs heavily over the border villages. Residents describe a daily rhythm of dread: the early morning buzz of surveillance drones, the nighttime flashes on the horizon, and the sudden thunder of warplanes overhead. Shops close earlier, schools have moved classes online, and farmers hesitate to work their fields near the border. In Al-Baisariya, life pauses once again. A bulldozer arrives to clear debris, its operator manoeuvring carefully to avoid scattering what little remains of the car. Civil defence personnel gather the fragments, photographing and cataloguing each piece. Their report will later be added to the growing archive of incidents documenting the toll of Israel's ongoing campaign in Lebanon. For Beirut and Jerusalem alike, the strikes are part of a dangerous chess game, each move calculated, each response measured, but with civilians caught squarely in the middle. In Tel Aviv, Israeli military spokespeople insist that the targets are linked to Hezbollah's missile logistics. "We will act wherever threats emerge," an Israeli spokesperson recently said, emphasizing that the army holds the Lebanese government responsible for all activities launched from its territory. Back in Al-Baisariya, villagers begin to sweep the road. They gather pieces of shattered glass, burnt plastic, and human remains in silence. Children watch from doorways, their expressions blank. For them, this has become normal. The sight of wreckage is no longer shocking. It is part of daily life. A man in his 50s, his hands trembling as he leans on a stick, looks directly into the camera and says quietly, "This is how wars start." One strike after another, and then the world wakes up too late. The voiceover transitions to a broader reflection. Across the Middle East, tension is rising on multiple fronts: Gaza, the Red Sea, the Syrian border. Lebanon's fragile political system is under renewed strain as the conflict threatens to spill over. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, has called for maximum restraint, warning that even one miscalculation could ignite a regional war. As dusk approaches, the scene in Al-Baisariya fades into muted tones. Smoke still curls into the darkening sky. The voices have quieted, only the sound of wind and distant sirens remains. The burned vehicle is now just a blackened shell, a reminder of how fragile peace is in this corner of the world. In the final moments, the narrator's tone turns reflective. Here, on the edge of war and memory, the border between life and death is drawn not by lines on a map, but by seconds, the seconds between warning and impact, between hope and loss. The camera lingers one last time on the Hezbollah sign, fluttering faintly in the evening breeze. Below it, the people of Al-Baisariya return slowly to their homes, carrying the weight of yet another strike, one more in a series that Lebanon fears may be only the beginning. As the screen fades to black, the voiceover concludes softly. In southern Lebanon, every explosion echoes across generations. The world watches, but for those who live here, the war never truly ends.